There's Bob Wilke live from somewhere up in the northwest corner of the country.
Just 20 minutes north of Seattle.
Now, Bob, you're a little low, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn my volume down a little bit, and if you can get that phone just right underneath you there somewhere, or maybe you stack it on a book or two, just to get a little bit closer to your mouth, or maybe my volume needs to be turned up.
How's this? Is this better?
Yeah, it is. Good. Thank you.
All right. Good. I'll project more.
Okay, so I'm going to open up the question box here also so I can see the questions coming in. For now, I want to make sure people can hear me and Bob. Folks, in the question box, would you mind just typing in maybe your city and state? That will tell me that you're listening to me at least and can hear me. And if you can't hear Bob talking for some reason, just say we can't hear Bob. Okay, that'll tell me, because on this end, we have no idea. All right, here's Subronso is in Dallas. Oh, you're right across the street from us basically here. Carrie's from Hudson, New York, and Guy is in Salt Lake City. Okay, good. Well, I guess you guys can hear everybody okay. So, Bob, let's start by just asking you a little bit about your background. Before you got into this business, what were you doing then?
Well, I've done a number of things, and you can probably guess that by the color of my hair. But I used to manage piano stores, toots, flutes, guitars, the whole schlemiel. After that, opened 3 retail stores in the Phoenix area. They were sports collectible stores. Was involved in the politics of that industry. Was the president of our national association. Put on the National Sports Collectors Convention for about 10, 11 years, which is the largest event of its kind throughout the country. We worked with 75 to 100 celebrity athletes every year.
Wow.
And then in addition to that, started a radio program on Sporting News Radio that was on the air for about 7 years called The Trader Speaks, which is kind of like the Babe Ruth meets the Home Shopping Network. Or no, the Antique Roadshow meets Babe Ruth, sorry. And people call and want to know what their collectibles are worth. And then here I am now, doing something that I had no idea I'd ever be doing in my entire life.
That is really strange.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Now, you and your wife, Molly, both work in the business, I know. By the way, are you working from an office, or are you still out of your home?
We're lucky. We're able to maintain our office in our home.
Ah, that's cool. Okay, so what is it that caused you to look into this business in particular?
Well, my wife and I met and married in 2007, and she'd moved from Scotland and had always been involved in pension plans. They call them pension schemes over there. I thought you can't call it here. You can't use the word schemes here. But she did that for a number of years. And when she moved here, decided she wanted to do something. I encouraged her to start her own business that I would support her. And she found ABS online and said, I want to go to Dallas. I want to do the training. Will you go with me? And I said, it was a real slow time of the year for me. I said, of course. So I went with her, and I got excited. That's where I met you and all of your staff. And I thought, geez, I was traveling 100,000 miles a year at the time, flying back and forth around the country. And
oh my goodness,
I thought this is a way for me to get off the road. We're newlyweds. I don't want to be gone a lot. And so we made a plan to, within 3 years, my partners would buy me out, and we would do this full time. That's what happened. So it's been fun to grow a business from absolutely nothing, which I've done before, and my wife hadn't, but we're enjoying success, which we're greatly appreciative of ABS for having given us this wonderful opportunity as well.
Do you remember what year that was that you guys came down here?
Yeah, it was November 2007.
Did I fall asleep while ago? You said that, didn't you?
In fact, it's almost my nap time, if you'll give me a few minutes.
I started to say it's after 3:30 here, so that's my bedtime. Okay, so what was Molly doing at the time? Anything? Was she working or?
No, nothing at all. As I said, she'd moved here from Scotland and had been very active in pension plans over there. So she decided she wanted to put her talents to use in medical billing. And she's been a fabulous person in terms of working with our clients and servicing their needs and taking care of everything that they possibly could need from us.
Yeah. So how do you fit in? Are you still involved in the business?
Oh, very much. Yes, I'm the front man. I'm the one that I go to the chamber and networking events, always looking for more clients. So it's and I help in the office. There's times I need to chip in and help, and I do. Happy to do it.
Yeah, good. Now, Eric, by the way, I do see your note there that he's told everybody he's going to be monitoring the questions during the webinar. So, Eric, if I see your answer to someone on there, of course, then I won't suspect that you're going to ask that question out loud. But you just send me a little note or something here on my phone anytime you want to let me know that there's a question that you'd like to read out loud, and I'll try to pay attention to that. Okay, so Bob, give us a feel for, let's jump way ahead first before we talk about what you did to start the business. And let's tell us where you're at right now. How many clients, what kind of volume, how much money do you have in your pocket right now? You know, those kind of things.
We have about 15 clients. We just since I last talked to you, I think we brought on 2 or 3 additional clients. We have just took on a nutritionist, which is fun to do because they're fairly easy to bill for. But we also took on a mental health clinic that's over the water from here. It's a ferry ride over, so it's always fun to go over there and visit them. But they are a growing clinic, and they plan to open 2, maybe 3 more clinics within the next 2 years. So it's fun to grow with a client like that because we grow together. And so that's where we're at. Now, the people that work for us, they all work remotely from their homes. We communicate almost on a daily basis or as needed. And with today's technology, it's so easy to run a medical billing business. I shouldn't say easy. It makes it easier to run a medical billing business.
Yeah, because you can work at home still like you are, and yet have people that work for you remotely, because with the technology that we have nowadays, just like right now, there's technology like Skype, for example. You can share the screen, documents, and you could, of course, interface with people. So you don't really have to get out of your house, and you can just sit around in your underwear if you want to, I guess, and run the business, right?
Absolutely.
Don't stand up, Bob. That was just theoretical.
I'm glad you reminded me.
All right, so you do have some folks working for you. Now, give us a feel for way back when you first started. What did you do to go out and find your first client?
We checked your counsel and joined BNI. And for those that don't, you want me to tell them a little bit about BNI?
Yes, please.
Business Networking International. I'm still a member. I just started my 10th year. But every time you held a webinar with someone who did what I did, a successful licensee, the question would come up, how did you find your clients? And almost without fail, they would say BNI. So Molly and I did an internet search. We found there was a BNI chapter right here in our town of Edmonds. And we visited it, joined that week, and that's where we've gotten the majority of our clients, directly or indirectly, because some of those clients now are referring business to us as well. So we did knock on some doors, don't misunderstand me, when we first started, and that's the difficult part. Finding clients is hard, but it's doable. You just got to stick with it, and that's what we did, and it really paid off.
Okay, Eric, you have a question there from Carrie?
Yeah, Carrie is wanting to ask you, Bob, how long did it take you and your wife to land your first client? And then the second question is, how long until you could both be full-time in the business? So let's first start with the one to the first client, and then where both of you were full-time in the business.
Well, our situation was unique. If you remember, I said I had my own business of putting on the National Sports Collectors Convention when we joined ABS in 2007. And I wasn't out of my business until the end of 2010. So for the first 3 years, we only found 1 or 2 clients, but we weren't desperate then. In other words, we still had our income and our time devoted to my business. So we really started picking up clients in earnest in 2011, 2012, and 2013. We started doing it full time beginning in January 1st, 2011, and we've not done anything else since.
Okay, and so did you enter?
Everybody's different, but I mean, I've talked to potential licensees who have said, I'm going to be doing this part-time. I talked to others that said, I've got to do this full-time. And so it's the spectrum. And we were doing it part-time for the first 3 years we did this.
Yeah, and that, of course, takes longer to get the first client. But we've had licensees, of course, leave the classroom here, and within a couple of weeks, they've got somebody. Because they've already learned how to do some of that networking. So those of you who are not familiar with BNI, it's just a group of business people to get together. Bob, they're from all backgrounds, aren't they?
They are, yes. Anywhere from plumbers to chiropractors to massage therapists. By the way, some of those also can become your clients. But you've got general contractors, social media gurus. It runs the gamut. By the way, we still have that first client that we picked up.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Was that the nutritionist? I lost track there.
Massage therapist. And we watched her
Massage
grow her
therapist.
business from one massage to just a single gal to she got 6 or 7 massage therapists working for her now.
Okay. So,
So it's
Bob,
fun to watch her grow.
they what? I'm sorry.
It's fun to watch our businesses grow, our client businesses.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. They are probably, some of them, thrilled that even though you're known as just a medical biller, you're also way more than that, right? You're a medical revenue manager.
Yeah, and it's surprising what some of your doctor clients will ask you to do. They'll request you to do. It's something that you've never done before and isn't necessarily affiliated with billing, but
Right.
it's kind of in the realm. So you learn to adapt and you learn to provide the services that your client wants and needs.
Yeah. By the way, Bob, I do have a picture of Molly, if you don't mind me showing. This is when you guys came down for training.
I won't tell.
You were you were standing there getting your mug shot, we call it.
Right.
So for those of you on the webinar that plan to come through our training, get ready for that. At the end, we use these pictures for these webinars like this because sometimes people don't have a webcam, and so they're not live like Bob is here. But anyway, so let's go to some of the other questions that are in there. Eric, you see another one there we could ask Bob?
Absolutely. Sepida is asking, how many employees do you have? Did you mention that already? Did you have employees?
I didn't mention the number. I believe we're at 6 right now, but that varies.
6 employees.
We have one person that works for us remotely. We're in Washington State. She's in Connecticut, but it works. She does.
Wow. Why don't you explain that a little bit? Explain how that all works. Yeah, explain how that works.
It's all technology. First of all, she is a single mom. She works full time on the East Coast, and she needed additional income. So in the evening, what's afternoon for us is evening for her. So she works for us when she comes home after work, or when she gets up early in the morning. We make sure that we fax her all the information that she needs. We talk on the phone on a regular basis. She files regular reports, but it works. We also have a client, out-of-state client. So clinic in Overland Park, Kansas found us via the web, just kind of tripped on our website. We spoke, hit it off, and we've been doing their billing for 2 or 3 years now. We never met. So it's an interesting world and industry in which we work.
Yeah, because like you said, Bob, it all revolves around the fact that we have a cloud-based system and you're able to do things nowadays that you were never able to do before without getting in your car or your plane and going and visiting the client. Now, how did you get that particular client, by the way?
She was surfing the web and found us found our website and decided to give me a call. And so once we chatted for a while, she decided that they wanted to use us for their billing needs. So again, never met them, but we're still doing a good job for them. Otherwise, I don't think we'd still be working with them.
Yeah. So basically, your territory then is the United States.
Anywhere in the United States. I'm still looking for that first client in Maui, but so far it hasn't happened.
Yeah, so you can go. Now that one you'd want to go visit for a couple of weeks, right, to talk to them. Yeah.
Yeah, at least every 3 or 4 months.
Okay, so by the way, I see Matthew is from Illinois, and then we got also James on here. He says he's from Powder Springs, Georgia. All right, so let's see. Eric, you have another question there from John, looks like.
Yes, we do. We have one from John. And so, Bob, he's asking, so tell us how you get paid.
Well, we bill all of our clients on a percentage basis. So our motto is, you don't get paid, meaning the doctor. We don't get paid, meaning us, until you get paid, meaning the doctor. So we bill the doctor strictly on what they've been paid, and we charge them a percentage on that gross amount. We bill them every month, and we've just instituted a program whereby we now send them an invoice electronically, and there's a link back where they can just click on the link on the email that they get and pay us directly, so we don't have to worry about collecting checks. So that's I recommend if you can get your clients to do that. It's easier, cleaner, and it's less stressful. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, so basically what he's saying, folks, is that The doctor gets paid directly from the insurance companies and from the government agencies, and then you're billing the doctor based on the amount of money that you collect for them each month. So if you collect 100,000 and you're charging 6% or 7%, whatever, then you're just billing the doctor for that percentage, and they can verify that in the system, can't they, Bob? Because you give them access.
Yes, they can. Yeah, they can actually go in and check it against the system, and also look at their remittance advice that they get from the insurance companies to just double check and make sure that everything's being recorded properly. So it's we've never had an issue with any doctor ever being concerned about us mishandling the funds, because you know why? We never handle the funds. All the money goes directly to the doctor. We don't ever want to touch the money.
No, you don't want to be in that loop at all. And that way there's never a problem about that. Bob, you'd be surprised, and maybe you've learned this from some doctors that you're dealing with, but a lot of doctors have found out that they've let that be in the hands of a billing company and not being able to check on it like with our system. They've absconded with some money that the doctor didn't know that they were getting, because somehow they figured out how to get that money sent directly to the billing company. And it happens. Even internally.
You and I could probably share some horror stories that doctors have experienced. We've seen it. It's terrible, both in-house and people that have outsourced it.
Yes. The doctor that is on our board of directors, Dr. Vicki Rackner, she has experienced that personally when she was in practice as a general surgeon. She had a partnership with another guy who was having somebody do it inside their office, and she came in and found out that person had absconded with thousands of dollars. So that's when she decided that outsourcing was probably the best way.
Absolutely. There's less opportunity to be defrauded or stolen from when you do it, when you outsource.
Yeah. Now,
hey, Patrick, I was going to say another one here from Diane. So here, Bob, this is kind of really getting into the marketing. So when you're out doing your networking thing, what are some of the things that you're talking about there that's actually getting people to go, hey, I need to talk to Bob Wilke, or I need to send Bob to a doctor? What do you do in just kind of lay out that whole presentation as best you can? I mean, we know we only have a few minutes here, but as best you can, what are you doing that's making a difference out there?
What I do quite often, especially at BNI or chamber meetings, is I talk about experiences that we've had where we've done something positive for one of our doctor clients. And then I say, if you know a doctor who seems to be having a similar problem or any problems, I'd like a personal introduction if you wouldn't mind. And it works. We had a person in our BNI group that was a medical insurance broker. And she had been working on this mental health clinic that I just told you about that we took on last fall for like a year. And then they finally contacted us and said, we need to talk to you now, because they're trying to do the billing by themselves, and they were failing miserably, and they were not getting paid. And so it's sharing experiences that you've had, success stories that you've had with those people that you're hoping will help it provide introductions or point and say, try this doctor over there, and set the stage. And it's nice when you can network with somebody where when you give them enough advice and information that they can set the table for you. When you go in, it's almost like the doctor says, where do I sign?
Yeah. A lot of it has to do with that introduction from somebody that you've met at a meeting like BNI. And of course, folks, we teach about a dozen different ways to market. And of course, we have a slew of marketing materials that you can use in your marketing. But the point is, there's nothing like a warm introduction from somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
It makes all the difference when you go into that meeting, because it's, as I said, I hate to keep using the phrase "the table is set," but it's true. You don't have to go in defensively or worried if they're going to tell you to leave. They already are expecting, and they know what you're going to come to talk to them about.
Yeah. That's the biggest question that we get, and you probably do when you take a call from a person like the folks on the webinar here today, right? Bob, is the thing they're scared about the most is the marketing. And really, you've indicated that you didn't do a whole lot of marketing after you got your first client, because they do refer to other doctors, don't they?
And they do, and the word gets around. If you do a nice job, they're going to be talking to other doctors or other people in the medical community, and they're going to recommend you. And it isn't always going to be a fit either. Don't misunderstand me. There are times we've had doctors recommended to us, and you could just tell it wasn't going to be a fit for whatever reason.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10, it pays off.
Yeah, and Bob, let me ask you this. In your contacts with doctors out there, what seems to be the biggest hurdle that you have to, cover with a doctor? I know there's lots of different situations, but is it the gatekeeper? Is it the person at the front desk? Or is it just getting to face to face with the doctor?
Well, when you say the person at the front desk, we call her Von Helga. Her job is to make sure that you don't get past her, because the doctors they're inundated with requests for this, that, and the other. So yes,
Yeah,
that's the key, and that's why networking really helps alleviate that problem. Because if someone in your networking sphere knows the doctor themselves, you bypass all of that because they
right.
set up the opportunity for you to have the meeting. The other issue that I think doctors are most concerned about when they're thinking about turning over their billing to you is they're looking at you as you could really interfere with my bank account, my wallet. Our job is we're their conduit to get them to get paid, and they're turning over their money to you. And I think if you view things this business in that manner, you're going to have a better concept of what doctors are most concerned about, and that is getting paid or not getting paid.
Yeah. There's a lot of different situations out there, of course, and part of people's thinking about this is it seems impossible to get some time with a doctor. And so maybe you could explain just a little bit about what you've done to actually do that. In other words, how did you engage with the doctor? Did you use one of our books, or what was it that actually got you some time to talk to the doctors?
Well, I think certainly the training that we received when we were there in Dallas, over 10 years ago, certainly came into play. We took notes, went home, talked about it, and knew that this is what we had to. You gave us the recipe, if you will, as to how to run a successful medical billing business. A lot of
Yeah.
it, I think, too, is if you are able to speak to people naturally, it's not that difficult. But I would say the vast majority of times we've actually had to deal with the office manager and close the deal through that individual, because sometimes doctors just don't want to be bothered with it. They just will tell the office manager, if you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. So that's surprising how many times that has happened as well. So every clinic is different, every close is different. Sometimes you go in and they're just ready to, as I said, say, where do I sign? Other times it takes a little more massaging and cajoling, but you eventually get the contract closed.
Well, when you're offering something that somebody really, that doctors need our help, that they're not collecting all the money that they could be collecting, probably, if they're doing it internally, for sure. And if they're outsourcing, they probably don't outsource to somebody like we have, the cloud-based system that's doing it in real time, not having to go through a third-party clearinghouse, as Eric said earlier. That all makes a big difference, but the doctor doesn't know that. So can you explain a little bit about how we teach you to go in and find out what the doctor needs from the office manager or from the doctor?
Well, yeah, good point. In every case, we still use this tool to this day, and that's the practice analysis that ABS provided for us. We sit down with whoever the responsible party is, and we ask all the proper questions. We find out how many employees they have. We find out how many tax IDs we're going to be billing under, what their current AR is, and sometimes that could be a real telling pain point. And then we ask how many claims you file in a month, what's the average value of each claim. We ask all those questions so that we can take that information back, determine all of their pain points. Just for that information, you can find out how much they're billing monthly. You can find out what their AR is and how serious it might be. Sometimes there's a serious AR problem and you decide you want to take that on. There's some real financial opportunities for a medical billing company, because you're going to charge more than the 6, 7, 8%, because it's going to be a lot of work to go back and try and capture those funds that could go back more than a year. And so you can negotiate an additional higher fee for that as well. So all that information, that practice analysis, is probably the most crucial tool, most important tool that you're going to find in the ABS toolbox, if you will, to find out exactly everything you need to know about a practice before you give them a proposal. And by the way, we do a really nice, elaborate proposal. It's we put everything but wrap it with a bow. It's impressive, and that's helped us get some clients as well. They see the work we put in on that presentation, and they go, "Wow, that's impressive."
And that all, of course. Oh, I'm sorry. What's that?
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that you've mentioned the practice analysis, folks. That's a 3-page document that we came up with over the years. We've developed that. It's proprietary. We do go over that in detail in the live workshop. So you know exactly what the questions mean, how to answer them, the questions, the answers that you might get from doctors and so forth. Then we also have a templated proposal that Bob just mentioned, and that sometimes can be 10, 12, 15 pages, I guess, can it, Bob?
It can, yeah, depending on the doctor and what's relative and what isn't. And it's editable, not edible.
Editable, right. And by the way, we have about 7 other ancillary services that you can offer to the doctor in addition to the billing. And so that's all in the proposal, and you just delete the things that you don't want to fit that particular doctor. Then you can pass that by our support department. Remember, we have lifetime support. And Bob, can you kind of address how we do the support on the back end?
Well, it's I'm amazed, and when a prospective licensee calls me sometimes, I will tell them the support that ABS did provide and does provide and will provide going forward. It still amazes me. I can send an email to you or Jordan or anyone at ABS, and I'll either get an email back within 24 hours, or one of you will give me a call. And I suspect you treat all of your licensees that way. You make sure your goal is to make them successful. You really are a giver's gain organization, and I've said that before, and I'll stand by that forever, because I really believe in ABS and what you've done for me and for all of your licensees.
Well, thank you, Bob. Actually, we have a little ulterior motive, of course. We make money on all of the claims that go through our system, so we want you to be as successful as possible. It's kind of like a partnership, isn't it?
It is.
And that's a good thing. It's the American way. You make money, we make money, and we help the doctor bring in more money. So, all right. I think Eric has another question here from Khalid.
Yeah, Khalid is kind of addressing some of the things you were mentioning, Bob, when you were making your proposals and putting all that together. His question is, do you ever give the doctors any incentives along the way?
That's a good question. I can't think of any incentives that we might have offered. I mean, maybe I'm missing the point here. I guess I'd need more information. Incentives, how? I guess that's the question I have to ask.
Well, I'm just asking, obviously, asking the question as it comes in here, but I would imagine, any breaks in percentages, or I would think maybe performance incentives. I'm not sure either. Maybe Khalid, you can kind of expound on that, but I thought I'd just ask it just as it is there. It just said,
I got to tell you, it's never come up. It's never been an issue. I suppose we would deal with it if it did come up, but thus far in 10 years it hasn't.
Maybe the best way.
He did clarify, like dinners. Did you ever give maybe bring food to the doctor's office, or take dinner or do anything like that?
Absolutely. Our Chamber of Commerce last fall produced shirts that said "Make Kindness Normal." T-shirts, "Make Kindness Normal." I mentioned to some of my clients, "Oh, that sounds great." So I had bought some for them and had them sent to them. Taking donuts, taking pizza, invite them out for happy hour if it's appropriate. So yes, I would. You've got to interact with your clients and still remain professional, but I do believe you have to go the extra mile, do the little things that separate you from everybody else.
Maybe the best way to address that is, folks, you're a licensee of our company, meaning you've licensed our system and our software, but it's your business. You can do anything you want to do. I mean, you could cut the first month's billing in half if it took it to get it. But Bob, you're saying that it hasn't taken anything like that, because you probably do a good enough job on the proposal that they look at it and go, "Oh, I'd be a fool not to move forward with this."
And don't get me wrong. There have been those times when we've mentioned, here's what our percentage would be, and they'll ask us if we'll take 1% less. And there are times when we have.
Okay.
But no one's ever come back and said, it's got to be half that. It's just never happened.
Yeah, but since it's
they know it's reasonable.
Right. And since it's your business, ABS doesn't have any input in that, Khalid. I mean, you can make any decisions you want to along that line. All right, Eric, anybody else there?
Yeah, Misma is asking, how much did it cost you to the point when you got your first client? Maybe just outside, not talking about your licensing fee, but did you have a budget of marketing basically along the lines to help you get your first client?
Our marketing is really networking. We ran a couple of ads in some medical directories, like for associations here in the state of Washington, with zero results. And they're good ads and rather costly, but we realized right away that the way we're going to meet potential clients is to network. And so, again, we haven't knocked on doors in years, but we did that initially, no cost there. To join BNI, there is a cost, but it's well under $1,000 for your first year. The chamber, most chambers, I think, cost you like $300 a year to join. They're all slightly different, but so there's not a big marketing budget involved here. It's just you got to put in the time and be willing to go out and, if you'll excuse the expression, press the flesh. You've got to meet people, and the more people you meet, the more likely you're going to find clients.
Right. And by the way, folks, there's lots of networking groups in your area that don't cost anything to go to. You can visit a lot of them 2 or 3 times at least before they even talk to you about a membership. But yeah, that's just a cost of doing business, and you could spend a lot of money on direct mail or a lot of other things, trade shows and so forth. But Bob just decided to put his money into what he felt like would be the best way to market, which was just to get out there and meet people that know doctors.
And by the way, I do believe in trade shows. I did not mention that. It's been a while since we've done any, but yes, we did some trade shows initially. And a booth can be costly. We found other partners that we could split the cost of a booth and share it, and that worked out fine as well. But again, it's meeting people, getting out, shaking hands.
Yeah.
All right. So Patrick, Carrie's got a great question here. Bob, have you ever had any success helping the doctors clean up their high accounts receivables?
Oh, yes. Let me put it this way. We've taken some on, some quite successfully. One was a Medicare issue, which was, as you know, after a year, it's almost impossible to get that paid because it's a government agency, and their policy is after a year, they're not going to pay the claim. But yes, we've had success. And again, we charged an additional percentage to help get it cleaned up. And that's where your the people that work for you or work with you can assist you in getting that done, because it can be tedious. You're spending a lot of time on the phone and trying to get insurance companies to pay the claims, and finding out what the problem is, why it didn't get paid in the first place.
Right.
So yes, that's success there.
Yeah, Bob, that's not unusual. We have a lot of licensees that, they walk in, some of them with, how can we help you with the money that the insurance companies owe you? And that gets their attention because they all are struggling with that. They do get checks every week from insurance companies, but what they're not getting is probably 20 to 30% more that they could be getting in if they had somebody that really concentrated on that. And even people that are doing it in-house, they usually have a million other things that they've got to do, and they don't focus on that because it's not a fun thing to do, of course. The pay is the same, right?
And they may not have the time. If they're a receptionist and a bookkeeper and a biller, they may not have the time to follow up on claims that aren't being paid. And I think, Patrick, too, the larger the clinic, the more you may see, the larger the problem, I believe.
Right.
So there's some real opportunities out there.
Oh, yeah, there is. That's because they're all struggling right now to get the money that's due them. Eric, I see you have a question here from Misma.
Yes. So how many hours do you spend per doctor per day?
I've never calculated per doctor per day. I can just tell you that there are weeks where we work 6-7 days a week, and there are weeks where we work 5. We may take an afternoon off because, it's our business. We can take off when we need to. We try to work it around our client schedule. Those that are nearby, we try and visit on a weekly basis if they'll let us. Some don't want us to come by. They just want us to get them paid. And then we bill them at the end of the month and they pay us. So everybody's different, but I've never sat and figured out what it's going to cost per client per doctor. I suppose there are people that are really focused on that, and nothing wrong with that, just not something that we focused on.
Yeah, Bob, I'm assuming that you have doctors that have 2 or 3 claims a day and maybe some that have 15 or 20 a day. Is that true?
Fair to say.
I think for people to kind of relate to this, give us a feel for if you had a doctor who really was doing, 20 claims a day even, How much time, if it's just an initial claim, would that do? Or maybe there's a mixture of repeat clients or patients and some are brand new. Can you give us a feel for 20 claims?
If you had 20 claims to file per day, a really bad day, it might take an hour and a half to get those done, but typically about an hour. Because you learn how to do it quickly. The filing claims part isn't difficult. It's when the remittance advice comes back and you see what wasn't paid, and that's where you have to spend the time talking to the insurance companies and getting things turned around for the doctor.
Right.
That's the most time-consuming part of what you're going to do.
Yeah. Now, without telling us what your bank account is, which I'm dying to know right now, tell us what kind of feel could people get from, let's just break it down to an hourly figure for somebody who's doing this all themselves. They don't have employees and they're just doing the billing themselves. If they could do, 40, 50, 60 claims a day even, wouldn't they be making a fairly decent hourly wage, if that's how we want to put it?
Well, I never looked at it from an hourly basis, but I think it's not unreasonable to think that you could find a client that could do anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 a month, depending on their volume and what kind of doctor they are. Massage clinics aren't, obviously, they're not going to be as fruitful in terms of gross dollars, but you've got general practitioners. That's going to be much higher, depending on how many providers are in that particular clinic. So I haven't broken it down per hour, but I can tell you that per month it could be anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 per doctor or per clinic. Forgive me.
Yeah. All right. Let's see, Eric. I think you said they had a question there from James.
Yes, we've got just a quick question here. Let me see if that's the one that I'm finding there.
Oh, maybe that's another one from Misma.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. So, Misma, did you feel like you learned everything you needed to learn to start your business from training?
From the live workshop?
Yeah, absolutely. If I recall, Patrick, well, I do recall, the largest amount of time is spent on marketing and getting clients. Every now and then someone will say, well, are you going to ever show us how to do the claims, how to file the claims? And you kept reminding us, that's the easy part. Let us teach you how to find clients. And that was the focus. So yeah, if you take the formula that you're going to be given when you come to Dallas for your training, you take it back and you work it just the way you were taught, you're going to be successful. It really is that simple. It's like any course. Follow what you're taught, you're going to do well. If you try and do something on your own, that doesn't work.
I should have you come back through training, because that's all changed now. We have laptops that we bring in on day one, and they are filing claims over our system from day one.
All right. Forget what I said. Delete. But that's the way it was then.
We do.
21st century.
And things have changed. That's right. I think we're on a completely different platform than iClaim and EMRX back then when you first came through too. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So folks, we constantly are researching and developing things. Eric is our R&D director, and he basically is looking at things all the time. In fact, he's got one he's dying to bring to our attention and introduce to the licensees. But I keep telling him, if you share that, I'm sorry, I have to kill you. Because it's a great one.
I can't wait to share it with Bob. I think I said I can't wait to share it with Bob.
Yes, Bob's going to like this too. Huh?
What about Bob? I'm excited.
What about Bob?
I'm excited.
That was a great movie. Okay. So folks, let's see what we got left here. Just about 15 minutes. So Bob, let me ask you this. Can you tell us any examples of doctors that you've done billing for that were like really hurting and maybe going out of practice that you kind of turned around?
Yes. In fact, one of the tools that you taught us that we implemented when we first started our business was to hold free seminars, invite doctors. We would go to an assisted living home somewhere here in our area, nice one. They are almost always welcome, or will welcome you into having the events there as long as there aren't too many people. And they provide the space free of charge, and they usually have their chef make some nice pastries, some treats, some soda, some coffee, some tea, water. And so we held our very first one right here in Edmonds, Washington. And I remember the office manager for a chiropractor came to the seminar, And her last comment was, "We haven't been paid by Medicare in years." And we knew right away we needed to meet with her. And so that was when I mentioned earlier that we had a hard time getting all of the older claims paid, but we did catch her up on at least everything that was under a year old. But that was a difficult chore, because dealing with insurance companies is one thing, but when you're dealing with the largest insurance company in the United States in Medicare, and it happens to be a government agency, it's cumbersome, and their rules and regulations are so different from a regular insurance company like Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then another one was a naturopath / acupuncturist who had AR going back almost $250,000, which is a lot of money for her. And she had just fired her biller because biller had been dishonest, hadn't sent out statements to patients in months and months and months. So it took us a good year and a half to get that cleaned up. But again, we charged a higher percentage to get her paid on the older claims, and got almost, I would say, 70% of them paid. So it can be done.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned several types of what I would think of as almost alternative type medical providers. Not that chiropractors are, but I mean, some of these naturopaths and so forth. Can you give us a feel for the other types of doctors that you have? Are there some that are just general practitioners, for example?
We did have a general practitioner. He retired, but we do have a number of mental health clinics. And that's what's interesting. If you kind of get with one niche, one area of medicine, it kind of continues to go in that direction. And so other mental health professionals recommend us to them. So we've had, I would say, 7 or 8 mental health clinics, most of them medium in size, 1 or 2 of them that are one-man shows. They don't have a receptionist, but they need billing. And you'll find that certain types of providers are easier to file claims for than others. Yeah. Because they use pretty much the same codes all the time, or very similar codes. So it's easier to do the billing for them.
Yeah. Now, Bob, we didn't have this back when you came through training. I'm going to tell you all the stuff you missed, okay, by getting in early. But we actually have a database now of all the doctors in the United States, including contact phone numbers, email, all that we've been able to find out there. And that's just a list that you could compile on your own if you had the time, right? Just by Googling in your area. But we've come up with, I think there's like 42 different specialties, in that database. And we provide that to our new licensees now so that they have somewhere to start if they want to do some marketing and don't want to just Google the names of doctors in their area. So it's just a way to, get started. Nothing special about it. It's not like they called us and said, we want you to contact us, but it's a place to start. And a lot of people are looking for that. They want to know, how can I immediately go out there and know who those doctors are in my area? So,
Patrick, that's a wonderful tool. That's a wonderful tool.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm blown away.
Yeah. And we can provide that to you, Bob, for another licensing fee. You just pay the licensing fee again. Okay.
Hey, Patrick.
Yeah.
I got a couple of last-minute questions here for Bob before we kind of start wrapping up here.
Okay.
Carrie's asking, have you been successful with doctors using the EMR system?
Yes. More so lately. I think more and more doctors are realizing that they can't run a practice successfully without it. And so it makes it easier to sell. And so I think, I don't know of many doctors that have a successful clinic that could run their business without it.
Yeah, I just saw a doctor just the other day, and they came in and they were using a laptop. So the doctor brings the laptop in, and he didn't have any place to set it, of course, except for that counter behind him. So he's facing the wall and the laptop talking to me and asking questions. It's like I don't even remember him ever looking me directly in the eye. It was very impersonal, which, as you can see on the screen there, folks, that is not something that our doctors do. We teach them to use the iPad. Our system is perfectly designed to run on an Apple iPad, and they can look right at it, right over it at the patient, and be tapping buttons as they're talking to the patient as if they had a notebook in their hand. It's much more personal, and of course it's cloud-based, so it's going directly into our system, giving you the information that you need to push a button on your end and actually do the billing for that once they've seen the patient. So,
and I've experienced what you've experienced. You're talking to his back while he's doing this on the counter.
Yeah.
Opens the door. Now you can have a conversation.
There you go. Last question here for Bob. What percentage of claims do you have to spend time on the phone with insurance companies? Can you kind of give us just maybe a ballpark figure of maybe a percentage of time that you're actually having to deal with insurance companies on the phone?
Sure. And let me preface my answer by saying you're sometimes calling insurance companies because the insurance policy has termed and the patient didn't tell the doctor, so the claim gets filed, and so you have to call the insurance company and get updated information. It might be that there's a problem with the biller on our end, or it just simply could be that it could be a number of reasons that it was not paid. But I would say it could easily be anywhere from 5 to 10%.
Yeah. Well, it all goes back down to any business. Of course, you're going to spend some time in it. And the bottom line is it worth your time? You know, are you making something on an hourly basis, no matter what it is that you're doing, that's profitable? And Bob, I don't know. Again, I've talked to licensees and interviewed them who've said that they probably average $80, $90 an hour doing their work. I'd say that's worth, spending whatever time doing whatever you need to do.
That's almost as good as a plumber.
Yes, you've dealt with those guys. They make pretty good money, don't they? All right. Well, Eric, thank you very much for the questions behind the scenes there. Bob, we're going to let you go for today. Thank you so much for your time, Bob. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say thanks to you and ABS and all you've done for our business. We really greatly appreciate it.
Hey, I'm always open for you sending me any amount of money that you wish, Bob, as a thank you. So just keep that in mind. Hey, by the way, the folks that are on here today who are still thinking about getting in the business, if some of them wanted to speak with you, can we have them contact their rep here at our office and give your phone number out?
Always happy to talk to a potential ABS licensee. Yes.
Well, thank you again, Bob. Tell Molly I said hello. Sorry, she is so busy doing the billing she couldn't be on here today, but we think of her often. Thank you.
I will do that. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you
so
much.